Hey, good morning, everybody. I wanted to continue on some of Katie Joy's content that she's had here. I'm not sure how long she's had this up, but I'm impressed with the stuff that she's brought forward. And in case you haven't seen any of this, I would like to bring this to attention because she does a fantastic job at pointing these out. And what we're going to be looking at today is the media claims that Gypsy or the media themselves have been fed by Gypsy, or both, or through her defense team, some kind of collusion going on, either by the Blanchard family themselves or between the Blanchard family, all the parties involved, the lawyers, the Blanchard family, because as everybody remembers, I said this multiple times, the defense had no idea how they were going to defend her in court. So all they had to really go on was dirty, manipulative, classic lawyer tactics. And boy, did they get their way. Boy, did they win. If you're looking to get away with something, I guess Mr. Stanfield's your man to go to. But anyways, we're going to start this off. And this is, like I said, Katie Joy runs the YouTube channel Without a Crystal Ball. I've known her for quite a while. I've watched her channel for years. She's very well researched. So here's media claim number 1. Gypsy was completely unaware of the truth. She thought she was sick. And this was promoted in The Act and Mommy Unalived and Dearest, plus the Dr. Phil interview, which to me is, outside of the Kale podcast, one of the most infuriating things you'll ever listen to, as I've always said. And it's been debunked. At least by 2009, Gypsy knew her real age and that she could walk. She told CPS she was 18. Well, yeah, I mean, that's obvious anyway, because, like, if you really, truly could not walk, and I had 2 brothers that couldn't, you would have severe atrophy in your legs, and that's something that's visible. Not only something you could pull up easily on a diagnosis, but you could physically see if there's atrophy in somebody's legs, which basically means it's the result of no movement or some kind of paralysis that's caused you to not use any muscles in your legs or anything whatsoever. So anyways, we're going to move on to the next bullet point here. She had multiple secret online profiles, used the internet unassisted, and created dating accounts. Yes, she did. And she had many roles and personas and wigs and everything to facilitate it. And it wasn't just online and indoors. She went to the VidCons. She was out. She went to Dan Glidewell's. I mean, she was able to get out and go and do and please as she pleased. This whole she was captive in the house and, chained to the bed thing, that's only a story by her. And, people see that in The Act, and they're just like, oh, that it had to have happened that way. She said so. It's like, no, she could be lying about this whole thing. And guess what? It's already been proven that she basically has been. At the end, again, I've said this before, Dee Dee didn't even want her in the house. Both Dick and Gypsy told those investigators, I think it was Gypsy, I got kicked. I'm kicked out of my house. I can't even go there. Nick is like, oh, I think, she did get kicked out of her house. It's like, so why did you need him to have Nick come on to live your mom then? If she was just like, get out anyways. Again, something her nor her supporters will ever answer. Okay, next bullet point. She admitted to lying to doctors and playing sick for perks. Yeah, that's called malingering or maligning in medical technology, in medical terminology. So, again, yeah. And a lot of times, with somebody that looked and depicted a 9-year-old, I mean, who would sit there and say that this person's lying or that this person is not telling the truth? I mean, it's like, imagine if you were wrong. Well, imagine if you were accusing somebody that's sitting right in front of you, that's got her head shaved because of supposed leukemia and radiation treatments. And also the fact that, she's in a wheelchair. It's just like, what am I supposed to say? Ma'am, no, I think you can walk. And, that head being shaved, that's just, you just shaved it because. It's like, who would, no one in the medical field would just be like, let me check to see if all this is legit. Because it's quite amazing that somebody would actually do that and fake it. Again, that's like one of the most unheard of things. I mean, we've seen it before. Unfortunately, we've seen people fake cancer for money online and stuff like that. One woman on TikTok got in big trouble. I forget her name. I've seen there's a few that did that, actually. They go on this huge journey of recovery from radiation treatment and, her cancer diagnosis. And you know what's sad? is there actually are one girl from Australia, actually. I forget her name. I think her name is Bella. She was on the platform on TikTok for about 3 years. Oh, this just made me so sad. This was on Inside Edition, and she did her like try on haul videos. She just shared parts of her life. Very, very sweet girl from Australia, and she actually when she got off of her treatment, when she went into hospice, she actually recorded one last video, and just her bravery and humbleness was something else. She's like, hello friends, I just want to say thank you for supporting me all these years, but I'm afraid my life has come to an end, and I'm off my medication, and I just want to thank, because I mean, at this point she could barely talk. She had something sticking, I forget exactly, whatever it was like the fact that somebody could mock a person like Bella, it just makes me so sick to my stomach that someone like Gypsy Rose or anybody that would actually fake that condition when like the people that actually have the condition, especially Bella, just had bravery. She's like, hey, it's my time to go, and I just want to say goodbye to everybody that's followed me all these years. Her page is still up. Go to Inside Edition if you want to check that out, and I believe you type it in the search bar. Bella, that's her first name, I forget her last name. She was only 24 years old. That's what's tragic. She was so young and so vibrant. She would have been a very big asset, like in the world somehow. She would have left a mark. And she basically, just type in Bella, Australia, cancer, TikTok. I think that should be enough keywords to find it. I don't see how you would not run it. It's got millions of views. At least on the Inside Edition story it does. So you could either try to find her on TikTok, or my best recommendation is to go to YouTube and type in those search words, and you will get an Inside Edition story about her. But anyways, anyone that malingers, especially something that serious, there's a special place in HELL for people like that. Anyways, moving on. Okay, this is media claim number 2. Dee Dee was physically abusive. She beat, chained, and slashed Gypsy. And this was promoted in Mommy Unalived and Dearest, and there's interviews with Gypsy post-arrest. Because of course there was. Pre-arrest, she's like, oh my God, no, I loved my mom. We were best friends. I would never hurt her. She even said this to her own, like, stepmom and dad. It's like, come on. If any of that was true, it's like, okay, fine, I was scared to tell the police. Even if all that, she wants to bring up that nonsense, which I never believe that's the truth anyways. Because, like, if you're sitting there facing the most serious charges in the world, you're going to sit there and not tell them what's going on simply because you're scared of what? The person that you were scared of is no longer here. They're not going to enter that door and start hitting on you or beating on you. Whatever. So, exactly scared of what? Having your freedom? This is Gypsy logic we're talking about, which is basically no logic at all. Okay. So anyways, here's the debunking. No medical records, photos, police reports, or eyewitness accounts back this up. That's very true. And we looked for them. These extreme abuse claims only surfaced after Gypsy was arrested. Well, I want to actually make that a little more accurate. After she consulted lawyers. Because at first, they even said it in her own documentaries that she fully endorses that they had no idea what they were going to do defense-wise. And that they weren't even looking at an abuse excuse. They were looking at more like a battered spouse angle. It's just like, yeah, that's good. Oh, from a guy you met up in real life, like twice. Once with your mother. Another time in a hotel room with you guys laughing and eating brownies. Yeah, so much beatdowns going down at that time. No, I think I think it's a standard in almost every state here in the U.S. that in order to even be considered a battered spouse, you have to be living with the person for at least a minimum. There has to be, I think it could be different amounts of time. I think I talked about this in another video, but if anyone's familiar with common law marriage here in the U.S., you don't even have to get married on paper. But if you live with the same partner or the same girlfriend, boyfriend for, I think some states it's 5 years, others it's 7, maybe longer. They recognize you, and you're paying bills together, you're combining your assets. They recognize you, at least in that county, and maybe even the state altogether, as you're a common law husband and wife. You know, I have many friends that, you know, did that. They're just like, we just didn't like get married on paper. We didn't actually like have a wedding or anything. We just decided to stay together and just didn't put any paperwork behind it, which is, you know, that's their choice. But again, even if you don't put it on paper, they will still recognize you as such. Okay, so the third one is friends, neighbors, and relatives said Dee Dee was strict but spoiled Gypsy. Now that is nothing short of the truth, because I've always maintained that I think the biggest sin Dee Dee Blanchard ever made when it came to Gypsy Rose was basically saying, my daughter Gypsy is my little princess and I'm going to treat her like one. So she basically gave her this princess fairy tale lifestyle that she eventually became accustomed to, and she didn't want that going away. So if her mom was like, hey, get the hell out of my house, she's like, huh, and leave this house that my illnesses helped get, fake ones, and leave all that cash that you have stashed away in that safe over there, and all the narcs that are in the cabinet. You think I'm just gonna leave that and just say goodbye and you can have it all? No, I got something for you, Mom. You know what I mean? A lot of people think it's still over a boy. No, because she wasn't ever truly into Nicholas anyway. Remember, one bus ticket back to Wisconsin. It was for him. Why not two if she was planning on running away with him? No, that was more of a Dan Glidewell thing. Nick was just the hired gun. That's it. Anyways, let's keep this going. Okay, so we're looking at media claim number 3. Dee Dee fabricated all of Gypsy's illnesses, and that was promoted in headlines and true crime YouTube channels and Lifetime Network. Now that was debunked by Gypsy had real documented conditions. Very true, and actually in one of the tabloids I read to you guys recently, Gypsy herself came out about this. And then why she's talking about IVF treatments right now. Because of this condition. You know, she said she was perfectly healthy. Her mom made her sick with all this stuff that she wasn't really sick with. No, it's like now she's like, oh no, I need to check, you know, we're going to do IVF because I don't want my daughter to have microdeletion. It's like, that's not only pretty serious, but it's also very rare. That's a rare condition. So, and it's got a variety of you know, symptoms. So it's not like one little thing, you know. It's a big deal. Okay, but anyways, that was debunked by just about everything. But let's just start, you know, with the bullet points. Gypsy had real documented conditions. Strabismus. Yep, which is, it's misalignment. It's misalignment. It's an eye that's where her little wonky eye comes from. You know, it's basically an eye twitch. It's like an eye misalignment. Yeah, it's an eye misalignment. That's exactly what it is. Feeding, swallowing issues, and infancy. Now that might have something to do with her diagnosis of failure to thrive. That was and is one of the symptoms of microdeletion early on. But again, it's hard to detect because it's such a rare condition that, you know, they might think that has something to do with a different diagnosis. But until you get enough symptoms, until you can collect enough data about one specific condition, they might attribute that to something else, at least for the time being. But they're never just gonna, you know, throw something over and be like, nope, that's what it is. They, I guarantee, waited to see exactly what that is. They'd known about the microdeletion for a while. So that, yes, again, this is the reason she had to get her salivary glands taken out. I mean, what was the original story? Oh yeah, her mom kept her so medicated that she would just drool all over the place. It's like, no. If that was the case and she was only drooling because she was drugged up, they wouldn't take salivary glands out. They would just they would lower the dosage of the medication or change it so she's coherent. They wouldn't take out your salivary glands. Get out of here with this crap. Anyways. 1Q21.1 microdeletion syndrome. You know about that? Again, I could go into all kinds of like backgrounds of not only how rare that condition is, but all the varieties of the symptoms that come along with it. But if you want to look into that, I would suggest looking up that specific form, and it's 1Q21.1. Yeah, look that up. Go ahead, do some Google searches on that. They will give you plenty. She had hyperventilation. confirmed by sleep studies. You know, that one picture everyone thinks she's like suffering all this medical abuse because she's got a CPAP machine attached to herself. I'm like, I wore those one time for a night just to see if I had, because I used to weigh a lot more. I used to weigh like, I've lost about 50 pounds since I came back to New York City. I wasn't fat or anything, but you could notice like in my face had a little more in it. And when you're a little bit like heavier, you'll go through sometimes sleep issues like sleep apnea. So at that time, I remember my doctor recommended to me that they give you the CPAP machine to take home, or you could do it inpatient, but there's no reason for me to do that. But yeah, I took a CPAP machine home, same kind of one that she had, and you attach it to your face. There's a timer and a setting over there. It's got like this beeping thing on it, and it basically, you know, measures like how often you breathe to see if your breathing is consistent. Because one thing I was told, you know what I mean, when I used to I shared an apartment with somebody, that person used to say, like, when they heard me sleep at night, it sounded like I was I was gasping for air. And essentially that's what sleep apnea sounds like, and that's what sleep apnea is you're not getting proper air when you sleep. You're not breathing properly for whatever reason, you know what I mean? Whether that's got to do with your, I mean, again, it could be weight issues, it could be cholesterol issues, it could be upper respiratory issues. There's abundance of factors that go into why someone has sleep apnea. It's very common, by the way. Sleep apnea is not an uncommon thing, but like at worst, you'll go to sleep with a CPAP machine so that way you can get the proper, or with a ventilation system so you can get the proper, oxygen at night. Because if you don't, because I remember, like, I think the person described my sleeping as like they wouldn't hear me breathing at all, and the next thing they heard would be like. Like I was like, as if someone was suffocating me, and then I, was let go, kind of thing. And this was just happening on its own. Again, it's subconscious when it happens. But yeah, no, completely. When people look at that, people that know nothing about medical, like, backgrounds, look at that picture of her with the tubes. It's just like, that is a CPAP machine. That's not going down into her stomach. That's not going all over her body. Well, what do you think that's going to do? Suck all the blood out of her body? It's like, no, that's a CPAP machine. Something very healthy that you should check out if you're worried about like your sleeping patterns. But she also had hypotonia, and that's low muscle tone. I think that also had to do with failure to thrive, because again, that is one of the microdeletion symptoms. Now, whether that she couldn't crawl right, because I think we saw that video of her and Ken where she couldn't really walk very well. Like, I think there were times where she either needed some assistance with either a walker or wheelchair, like, based off the microdeletion. So we do know that she did have some coordination issues because of the microdeletion. But again, it's a little more than that. Again, I suggest you guys go and read up on this specific kind of microdeletion, and it will explain a lot of not only Gypsy's stories, but how she also exaggerated them and enhanced them. But let's go to the next media claim. This is media claim number 4, and probably one of the most widely known and biggest falsehoods that still goes around to this day. Dee Dee had Munchausen by proxy. Oh my God. And people think we're nuts for not acknowledging this. It's like, because it's not true. But again, these are people that just watched the documentaries, listened to Gypsy's words, and did no other research. So, what do you expect? So, this is, again, promoted in pretty much everything. All major media, including The Act, HBO, BuzzFeed. I mean, any place that talked about Gypsy's case, whether it was an interview, it was an adaptation of her story, it was a documentary on her story, everything was trying to be, that term, Munchausen by proxy, was jammed into everybody's heads since the very beginning of it. Again, it's like, if that were actually true, the Munchausen by proxy thing, why would the attorneys on her side still be saying, oh, if she goes to trial, she's going away for the rest of her life? Why? There's your defense. I was a victim of Munchausen by proxy. First of all, I would like to tell you something statistically. Victims of Munchausen by proxy do not survive. There is no documented survivor of Munchausen by proxy, let alone having the victim unalive their perpetrator. So you got two ridiculous anomalies happening at the same time? No. No. And secondly, despite Gypsy's words, which we know those should be taken with a grain of salt, Dee Dee can't be diagnosed because she's deceased. You know? It's just like, there's no evidence that anyone can point me to that showed me or said to me that Dee Dee was giving her something to make her sick or make her a certain way. Because, you know, there's no videos of her coughing or even sneezing. It's just like, there's nothing anywhere in any video, any statement by, you know, doctors, neighbors, whoever, that said, you know what, she acted completely out of it, or I saw her condition start to decline, or, you know, no. She was like the same little upbeaty, hi everybody, you know, crap like that. It's just like, that act went on the whole time. She never even showed all these illnesses, and there's like no signs of distress. There's no signs of, like, you know, her having like a seizure, or you'd figure like things would be happening with her like every 10 minutes, considering the circumstances that they were insisting on. It's just like, wow, you certainly get around, and you're certainly quite consistent every day of just being up and around and happy and riding around your wheelchair and smiling and eating royal mashed potatoes, whatever. It's just like, well, you're a pretty symptom-free sick person, considering how many you have. It's like, it's quite amazing. But again, it's hard to question these things, because what if you're wrong? You're gonna look very evil. It's just like, why would you question this poor sick girl that's really 23, 24 years old, and then, you know, and her poor mom has just been there taking care of her, dropped everything. It's just like, no, she didn't have to drop much, because Gypsy was her cash cow, and before that, I've never heard of Dee Dee working anywhere. No, I'm sorry, I lied. She worked with Christy. I forget exactly where, but she worked with Christy, and then that's when Christy took her man. That's when Christy took Rod away, which wouldn't have been that very hard, because he had 3 baby mamas, 3 kids on the way at the same time. And this isn't like the 70s/80s, during a whole different era before this whole baby mama, baby daddy thing started. So it's just like, wow, dude. It's just like, were condoms not sold at your county, sir? It's just like, do you need a plastic bag or something? Jesus. Anyways, so we're gonna go with the debunkings here. No psychiatric diagnosis of Dee Dee was ever made. Correct, because she's deceased. And number 2, Dr. Flasherstein is suspected FDIA, but didn't report it. Okay? Yeah. We've actually seen him in interviews, and you know what? If he suspected something strong enough, he would have reported it. CPS closed the only investigation because Gypsy was legally an adult and didn't ask for help. Correct. And at one point, she was alone with them, so she could have said anything to them at any time. Mommy dearest was not anywhere near her. You know what I mean? And even if she was, it's like they could have talked quietly enough, or she could have written something down, you know, made it so her mom didn't have to hear it, if she feared her that bad. They would have taken her out of the house right there and then, if certain things were said. But again, it's like the house, the assets, the stuff that she had in there. It's like Gypsy did not just want to let that go and give it to a bedbound woman. She wanted it. And I think she thought, like, if she does pass away at a certain point, it's probably going to go to her sisters and, you know, her immediate family, or her sister, her brother, whoever she has in her family, and, you know, that would have been it, and Gypsy would have been, yeah, you get it. Okay, so most of Dee Dee's behavior, including medical lying, also benefited Gypsy directly. I think that's the only reason she did it, was to benefit Gypsy. Like I said, I think the biggest sin, if not the only real sin that I've seen come from Dee Dee Blanchard, was the fact that she was willing to go to any lengths, legally, not legally or not, in order to give Princess Gypsy what she wants. And at first, I think she gave it to her because she wanted her to have it. She wanted her princess to feel like a princess. But then guess what? You don't teach somebody about accountability. You don't ever tell them no. You don't ever teach them what boundaries are. You don't teach them what accountability is. And guess what you're going to create? An over-entitled monster. You know, Exhibit A. Gypsy herself. Why do you think we're here with this article? because, you know, in a way, it's like, yeah, Dee Dee is kind of to blame. I'm not saying she was the cause of her own demise or that she deserved it. See, that's another thing that people keep peddling. It's just like, well, she deserved it because she was abusive. It's like, listen, even if somebody was abusive, and this doesn't mean I'm sticking up for them. I don't think being judge, jury, and executioner right there in 2 seconds is exactly the way to go. You get due process. You get due process. You know what I mean? Let the person be arrested. Let the justice system take its course. Or let them plead to a lesser charge, and they get the lesser charge and off they go. You know what I mean? Either way, it's just like, yeah. It didn't have to go down the way it did. Okay, I think that's it. Never proven, just assumed based on popular. Okay, that's all right. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so number 5, media claim BS narrative number 5. Gypsy was an innocent, helpless child. You poor thing. Nope. This was promoted in most documentaries and public sympathy campaigns. Yep. Well, I mean, at the same time, like, when you look at the narratives of everything else, everything they're saying is basically, a determination to make her the victim anyway. Just because they don't come right out and say it doesn't mean, like, everything they're saying doesn't insinuate that in some way. So it's just like, they're saying it without actually saying it. But, you know, when you constantly say all these horrific things happen to this one person by this horrible, evil mommy, it's just like, obviously, what are you going to think? They're going to think this person's a victim. So, yeah. The campaigners, I don't even know why you would need that. You're the mainstream media for that. They're the biggest activists of all. This was debunked by she used her real age online and initiated romantic relationships and knew how to cover up lies. See, that's another thing. It's just like, if she didn't know her age, then why would she be telling people her age on, all those, like, dating websites she was on? She was even on that. See, another thing I find completely ironic about this, and just kind of like, almost like really like, I can't explain it, but it's evil, is the fact that her and Nicholas Godejohn, were in a Christian singles dating website. It's just like, wow. Not very Christian-like of you, Gypsy, to be dressing up in all these, like, skimpy outfits, recording it for recording it so you can post it to a platform of 9.5 plus people, and then also getting the one guy you met on the Christian website to come break the first commandment, thou shalt not unalive. It's like, yeah, not a very, very, I don't think she belonged on that Christian site, but you want to know what? Maybe she was seeking somebody out on there. Although I don't think too many hitmen would hang out at that site, but hey, she got lucky, I guess. Okay, she helped plan her mother's murder, including texting instructions, hiding the weapon, and pretending to be on the run. No, she was actually on the run. She was, technically. It's not like she was hanging around the pink house afterwards. It's not like it took place and then she's just going to walk around. No. She left. She got away. She went on the run with Nick. And then they were stupid enough to use a computer that revealed the IP address. And that's how they found him. I guess you didn't do quite the job you thought you did research-wise, Gypsy. Anyways, let's get more to the debunking. The third one. After the murder, she posed for photos, had schmecks with Godejohn, and never called 911. Yeah, I find it just drop dead hilarious when she said she wrote that B word is dead. I graped and did all this. You've seen those Facebook messages. And for her to say that she wrote those only because she wanted to have her mom's body be found is absurd. First of all, that wouldn't guarantee anyone to go over there anyway. Because, it's just like, wow, something must be going down. Well, I'll talk to them later. Or they'll get a bunch of DMs or something. But I'm glad that she did have a pretty proactive community that jumped on this right away when they knew that something was wrong. Like, the car was missing, and Gypsy and Dee Dee haven't been seen in days. And they know, and up to what they knew, Gypsy was very... she was very incapable. She was in the wheelchair. She needed 24/7 care as far as they knew. But after Dee Dee was unalived, she left there on foot. Yeah, Gypsy did not exactly need a wheelchair to get out of there. It's like she left on foot. Okay, and I think that's all we have for this one, so let's keep going. Media claim number 6. She only went along with the lies because she was scared. No. Something tells me that if she was able to successfully organize a public movie theater bathroom schmex session, there was no fear amongst anyone. Well, at least not in Gypsy's end. I think Dee Dee grew very fearful of her. But that's just my opinion. She told Nicholas Godejohn that was all a scam and they could leave when they wanted. Yeah. Yep. So she debunked herself. Very selective. Multiple people offered her help. Neighbor Aaliyah, that's the one friend she kind of made. Even her mom supposedly did like her. I don't know. The police, doctors, and she refused every time. Well, that's no one's fault but hers. She had ample opportunity to do anything other than what she did. The fact she chose not to, I don't see how this woman gets any sympathy or deserves it. She does not. Anyways, moving on. Media claim number 7. Schmurder was the only way out. My God, this one just... Another one I just kind of laugh, but it's hard to laugh at because of how tragic it is. This was promoted in Mommy Unalived and Dearest, in interviews, social media, and whenever she opens her lying mouth. Debunked by Gypsy herself. Gypsy had run away before, had contact with people outside the home, and used the internet unsupervised. Yeah, if you're doing all that, I don't think you're being chained anywhere. Just saying. Okay, next bullet point is Godejohn offered to call the police and help her leave, and she rejected it and insisted on the schmurder. And I've always said this. I think this has to do with Gypsy's profound hatred for her mother at this point. I don't think this had anything to do with Dan Glidewell wanting to be with a boy or wanting to get out of the house but couldn't. You know what I mean? It's just like this had to do with, just her hatred for her mother and her greed behind the situation. Because again, after everything they'd so-called built together and after everything they'd so-called obtained together, it's like she was running the show, at least for the most part. Dee Dee was, but then again, she couldn't have ran it without a sick child with her, so Gypsy had to play her role. I think the reason why Dee Dee didn't care towards the end is because she felt herself coming to, life coming to an end, and she doesn't care who gets some money after that. Money is going to be irrelevant at the end of the day after you pass away. So I'm just saying. Alright, so debunked by Gypsy had... Okay, we saw that. Godejohn had offered the blue. There were non-violent exit paths she chose not to take. Schmurder was a choice, not a necessity. That's all correct. That's right. There were non-violent. I think the biggest one is leaving on your 2 feet, calling a cab. Just saying. That's all you had to do. That's all you had to do. And you would not be where you are right now. It sucks. And I'm not talking about Gypsy. I'm talking about Nick. He was railroaded. They needed to cast him as the villain, which I don't know why. He should be the hero. If she went through this lifetime of abuse, why isn't the guy that slayed the dragon not being crowned the king in this? In one of her goofy little, Beauty and the... Yeah, just whatever. All those Disney movies, it's like you would think, like, Beauty and the Beast and Rapunzel and all that. It's like you have Prince Charming coming, and then it's like, nah, forget Prince Charming. I'm gonna, have this adulterous baby with someone else in this Disney adaptation. She just takes all the most innocent things and turns it into like this one big pile of dysfunction. It's just like, this is why you can't be around somebody like Gypsy Rose, because she is just going to take complete destruction with her. And if you could survive that storm, I give you some, I commend you, my friend. Okay, so I believe that was it for this one. That's number 7. Let's keep going. Now here's some final thoughts. The Gypsy Rose media machine has sold a sensationalized, one-sided narrative but it falls apart when held to real-world facts and scrutiny itself. Gypsy has lied repeatedly, benefited from the scams, and weaponized victimhood for legal and financial gain. Yeah, that's about as big of a disservice that you could do to the people that are actually victimized in situations like this. It's like you make her the poster girl for victimization when she's not even a victim. It's like, yeah, good job, America. It's the American justice system, or at least the Missouri justice system. Again, it's not the American one, because if this happened in Texas, she wouldn't have came out of there. Guarantee it. If you'd like, this is from Katie Joy herself, if you'd like, I can pull quotes from Dr. Phil, ABC 2020, and her parole interviews to even internal court records to show the timeline of these contradictions. Just say the word. Okay, maybe she posted it. I have to go over her page again. I'm just kind of going through some other content creators and seeing what's interesting out there. I know that people are currently reading excerpts of the new FOIAs. If you want to catch all that, go to my friends in Into the Weeds podcast. Been on a good, one-on-one basis with them, and that's a great podcast, and they're reading them out loud. And then Conspiracy, Tiffany, my friend from Conspiracy, has been reposting them with subtitles, and just kind of made that content, or at least the recordings of that content, and something that's all her own. But either way, I would go to Conspiracy if you want the excerpts. If you want the full versions, I would go to Without a Crystal Ball. So again, those are like the best ones I can recommend. And basically, I don't disagree with any of this. It's great to see that articles like this have been being put out that show that there's been direct contradictions, lies, everything that has gone on with this, and I approve of this. And it's nice to see someone like Katie Joy and Without a Crystal Ball put out the truth and, use specific receipts and examples to make that go forward. And unless you're just a blind follower that's just held on, a thread, then this is something that if you have enough intellectual, intelligence and, accountability, you should have no problem at all. You know what I mean? Admitting accountability. But we know this is Gypsy Rose we're talking about here. But what do you guys think about all this? You guys like these media claims? I'm pretty sure there's a whole ton more, but these videos can only go on for so long. And even sometimes when I'm doing commentary like this, even my videos end up going over 20 minutes. I'm just like, oh man, there I go rambling again. So I'm going to stop this here. I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about these media claims? And if there's none here, I'm sure there's plenty more, I know there is, of other media claims that got debunked, leave it in the comments and let's talk about it.